it does get kind of boring after that first few hours. Or how about places like, what was it? Where did I go? Idaho? Corn as far as the eye could see. Now, unless you're hungry, it's kind of boring. But still, my point is, this is part of God's scenery. All it leads to me to make this observation, which perhaps goes a bit against the grain. Spiritual plateaus, like physical plateaus, they are natural and they are normal and, hold on, they're necessary. They're part of God's scenery of the Christian life. I mean, if all we had were valleys, perhaps we would never see the mountains. If all we had were mountains, we could never enjoy the plains. And if all we had were sandy beaches, perhaps we would never appreciate or enjoy the forest. I mean, I've already proposed the spiritual plateaus are necessary to accomplish certain things in life, and that's true. And let me give you some ideas what they do for us. First, they allow us to find a rhythm in life. Have you ever heard somebody say, well, I'm just trying to get my stride? I mean, sometimes, well, actually, I read this, and I don't know, statistics or whatever they are, they're numbers. I think sometimes they just make them up, but somebody spent the time to do the math. But I read someplace that said that 99% of life is ordinary. Right? And you know, I think that's true. I mean, there are things in life we can do nothing about. Probably 99% of those things we can do nothing about. Most of life is the same old stuff, day after day after day. And because plateaus are relatively flat, they allow us to do something. They give us the opportunity to set a course. They give us the opportunity to set goals for every day. How many of you do that? Maybe you try to, even after today's over, you're done with you've come to Sunday, go to worship, and you've finished all your festivities, and now you go home, and then you start looking at the calendar. Okay, what am I going to do this week? Anybody besides me? I'm going to set my goal. The second thing is that plateaus teaches us the importance of something. It teaches us the importance of perseverance. I mean, you remember that story about the tortoise and the hare? How many of you know that story? Amen. And you like that story. I mean, we really like that story. The reason we like that story is because it is a fundamental truth that we can wrap our minds on, right? That rabbit was just running its little legs off. Amen? And the tortoise still gets there. Steady she goes. Turn to your neighbor and say, steady she goes.
Steady she goes.
You see, here's what I'm telling you this morning. I mean, you need to understand this. Many of us listening to this, many of us are going to get this later on, but you need to hear what I'm telling you right now. Because here's what God honors. God honors those who keep their commitments. Those who make a promise and keep their promise. He can trust them not only with His word, but that He can trust what they say. Amen? And God honors those who will follow His path, and He also will follow. He honors those who just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Some of you have been doing that your whole life. Keep doing it. God honors that. But it's too hard. Too many of us have decided it was too hard. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't pleasant. It just isn't fun. And that's I'll be talking about that later. And there's a third attribute to this. Plateaus wean us away from experience-oriented Christianity. I kind of beat on that a little bit. So many of us have been adrenaline junkies. We're looking for the excitement. We're rushing from one high to another high. I mean, it's kind of like a drug addict, going from one drug to the next. Alcoholic going to marijuana going to something harder and harder and harder, and before you know it, it's all over. Our culture certainly encourages us to go in that direction. Listen to what I'm telling you. In just one generation, we've gone from phone calls to emails to web blogs to Facebook to instant messages and Twitter. Now all life is just a series of tweets and instant messages. Are you listening to me this morning? I mean, think about it. It's your entire life in 100 characters. Some of us, we were all caught up in that. I'm glad I didn't get it. All I will tell you, though, when I got my first smartphone, which was a BlackBerry, I found out why they called it Crackberry. I came back on the road. My daughter, who talked me into getting the BlackBerry, I'm sitting there on the couch and she's laughing. I said, what's your... She said, you got it. I said, what? The addiction. Just so you know, I put that thing down. But it kept calling for me. I mean, think about this. I know, how many remember Eric Severide? Sister Leah, you remember Eric Severide on the CBS News, right? I remember that. And you know what? The thing I remember, there was a few other newscasters, their name escapes me, but they always used to give this, when they gave the news, they gave a story. I mean, it was something you really just hung on to. But you know, if you look at the news today, you know, cable and satellite, we are bombarded with information. We are on overload. I mean, you look at a newscaster today, what do you see? Here's a newscaster. On this side, there's these little, I'll call them, I guess they're little thumbnails, you know, pictures of these other people over here, these other people over here. And if that wasn't enough, you've got this thing on the bottom. I think they call it a marquee. You know, it's the banner at the bottom, and there's stuff swinging across there, and there's more information there, and they're talking, and they're talking, and they're talking, and they're talking. We're reading, and they're talking, and they're showing us pictures of, oh, I can't take it anymore. Amen? Yes. No one can take all this in. This information superhighway, it could be a good thing, but it's not all that good, especially when we can't discipline ourselves. Watch this. Did you know that too much of anything is bad? Come on. Listen, nothing of itself is a sin. It's what we make of it. We get hung up on it. Amen? So here's, I mean, you think about all this, and look at our youth today. Wait, forget the youth. No, I didn't mean to forget the youth. Let's look at the kids. Even kids today. 9 years old, they've got their cell phone. I'm down here at St. Mary's Fest yesterday, and I mean, these little kids this tall. Come on, you came to the carnival, put that thing away. There was one mother, she came up to these kids. I guess they were all her kids, I don't know. But she came walking around the corner, and there's these kids, and there's 4 kids standing there, right? They're with each other. They're there together. And they're all like this. Mom came around the corner, snatched all their phones, put them in a bag, and walked away. That's all right. Give that mother a hand clap of praise. But now you have to be willing to do what she did to yourself. Because there's probably something in your life that's got your attention. Amen? Something that's distracted you from the presence of God. So how does all this figure into the whole spiritual equation? And I'll just say our experience in our faith walk. Well, in society, let me tell you what it does. It overdoses you. It overdoses us on adrenaline, dopamine. I could give you all kinds of other medical terms. We naturally want the same thing in our spiritual lives, don't we? We would love to be just overloaded. Listen, how did they say? Addicted to Jesus. And listen, I don't know if I like that term or not. I don't know if I like that. I'm addicted to Jesus. No, you're not. That's to say you have no free will. So it's a lie. And if you're addicted to something you think is Jesus, that's not Jesus. Hello? You might be addicted to a feeling that you once felt, maybe like I said earlier, when that one day, maybe even a few other experiences after that, you went to a meeting, you were at a church service, maybe you were having your own little worship service, driving your car, whatever, you had this experience, and from then on you continually look for that fix to get that high. Society overdoses on adrenaline, and we naturally want the same thing in our lives. I want to feel the Lord deep in my soul. When you don't feel him, you think he's gone. Well, listen, I want to feel it too, okay? I want to feel it. I feel like Tom Jones. I just got this feeling deep inside of me. Jesus. No. This doesn't work. Nothing against Tom Jones, I hope, but Here's what I'm telling you this morning. God never